Good morning. I'd like to bring this County Commission meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, cell phones, please silence those. Take a moment of silent prayer, please.
Take me that long to get my chair.
Thank you. I'll begin the roll call this morning with Commissioner Vicki Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
Jeff Culberson is here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stevens.
Here.
All present and accounted for. Public comment. I have 2 people signed up for public comment. First one I think signed up was a Michelle Nestor. Come on up to the podium and state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Nestor. My address is 18456 Tonganoxie Drive.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Nestor. Here is a concerned citizen of High Prairie Township. As we move into discussions about how fire protection is going to be provided in High Prairie Township, there are 3 main options from a Board of County Commissioners perspective: dissolve, run, or contract services out. The critical information we as a township require is the path that the board is leaning so that we can react and respond accordingly. With specificity to contracting services out, there is some data that is pertinent to the decision. This may all be information you already have, and in that case, my apologies. My intent is to make sure that there is a common understanding. The current and historical run rate for Fire District 1, with all 3 entities combined, is 9 mils. That cost includes the expenses for all of the equipment, stations, personnel, including Station 2. With the dissolution of the interlocal agreement, the expenses of Station 2 and the equipment will be moved to High Prairie Township. If contracting is the intention going forward and the contract is hovering around the 9 mil range, the expenses of Station 2 and High Prairie Township equipment would need to be required by that contract, or need to be covered by that contract. If those expenses are not included in the contract price would need to be lowered such that those costs can be covered and still remain within that 9 mil rate. So if I had to guess, and these numbers are not the official numbers, those numbers would have to come from our treasurer. But if I had to guess, the expenses over in High Prairie Township that have been moved, the run rate's probably about 2 mils. My guess. So get the official number if that is the direction that you're going. If that contract does get negotiated at 9 mils without that consideration of those expenses, that would mean the run rate for High Prairie Township citizens would be 11 mils. Which is not acceptable from my perspective, and I don't think anybody else's either. Now, contracting is a short-term solution. Long-term, the citizens of the county would benefit from a wider fire protection net, in which Station 2, High Prairie Township Fire Department, or whatever incarnation it is, as an operating concern, would provide fuller coverage in the rural areas of the county. Will there be growing pains? Yes. Yes, there will. But anything new, and usually those things worth having, are not easy, and they require the effort to make them happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next signed up, I have Kathleen Williams. Morning, Kathleen.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Kathleen Williams. I live at 17203 McIntyre Road. I am the treasurer of the township, but I don't know what you mean by determining fire protection for High Prairie Township today, since many High Prairie Township residents want their tax dollars to support its own fire protection as Leavenworth County Fire District 1. We are in the process of forming our fire protection plan as Fire District 1. But I would like to make one request of you today. Do not make Leavenworth County Fire District 1 inoperable or dissolve it because of the firefighters' relief fund. Not to be confused with the Kansas Police and Fire account. This is a fund supported by a portion of the premium money paid to the various insurance companies from each Kansas homeowner's insurance policy. This money is sent to the state where it distributes the money out to the various fire departments and districts in Kansas. This fund pays out to full-time, part-time, and volunteer firefighters after they have served 20 years of service or should they die in the line of duty. The firefighters of the fire department or district vote to be members of the Firefighters Relief Fund. There is one stipulation. These firefighters have to complete all 20 years of service with the same fire department in order to collect his or her portion of the funds. Their time is non-transferable to another fire department or district. But these firefighters can continue their service as part-time or volunteer firefighters and maintain their assets if we can retain Leavenworth County Fire District 1. Some of these firefighters already in Fire District 1 have served over 10 years but haven't quite reached their 20. They will not be eligible to pull their assets out should Fire District 1. Some of the firefighters that have had 20 years or over have already pulled their assets. This is a huge financial loss to those firefighters that cannot do it. And these accounts are 5 to 6 figure digit dollars. We're talking a lot of money for these fellas and gals. In essence, please consider the time these firefighters have dedicated to answer the tone when it sounded off, for attending required training to maintain their skills and to build teamwork on a truck, for obtaining necessary continuing education credits to maintain his or her EMT certificate, and for all the times they have missed out on family events because they have put duty first. Please consider the impact of your decision you make today and have their financial assets that they have been building in the fund in Leavenworth County Fire District as a firefighter. Your decision you make today has a huge financial impact on them and their families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we had signed up for public comment. We have somebody in the room. Louis, do you have public comment?
Yes.
Come on it.
Sorry I didn't get dressed properly. I thought I played basketball this morning. My name's Louis Klemp. Live at 1816 Pine Ridge Drive, Leavenworth, Kansas. Been here for 86 years. 2 times I've brought it up. One of the commissioners, won't mention names, said a museum committee would be very important. Nothing's been done in 2 years or more. There needs to be a museum committee. City of Leavenworth just gave $47,500 to the Fort Leavenworth Museum. Why'd they do that? I don't know. That was sort of ridiculous. I didn't retire. I don't get a $100,000 check, but I'd be willing to give $1,000 for that museum because that's progress. The Lansing Prison, that's progress. The biggest business in Leavenworth won't be out here on Eisenhower Road. That's been for how many years? Well, it's some company wants to buy the whole land. Well, they're not. They're playing the big business game. But the Eisenhower Road is a very important road, but it won't supply the biggest business. The biggest business in Leavenworth County will be history. Now, I don't know about any of these people here in the fire district. That's good. As long as that fire district, those people are paying for that fire district, and my elderlies in Leavenworth aren't paying for it, getting shoved out of their houses because they can't afford the property tax. The biggest business are museums. We are the oldest city in the state and the oldest city in the territory, and we need to go ahead with museums. I don't know how long they talk, but I think it's longer than 3 minutes, and that's all right, I guess, because it's a very important project to them. To the rest of the community, it probably isn't that important, because the majority of the fire departments in the United States were volunteers. It's going to add to their property tax. That's good. Hopefully it won't add to mine and all my elderlies here in Leavenworth County. Hopefully it's just going to be them making the payment, because I guess most of them can afford it. And it's something that they want to protect their houses and their farms and or what else they have. So next week I'll talk about finance over here that you guys need to be charging the state for renting this wing over here. They're getting that wing for nothing, but they're creating problems for us, the taxpayers. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Clem.
Thank you, Louis. Have anybody else in the room for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Lothar, you have anything for us this morning?
Commissioners, I had asked you previously about next week's schedule with Thanksgiving. Just wanted to see. I didn't get everybody's response, but
Move the meeting.
moving into Tuesday for consideration of people who are traveling.
I'm fine with that.
We just miss a Mark meeting, but that's all right.
We need to make a motion or just consensus?
Just make a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to move the meeting next week to Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Begin voting with Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
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 So moved.
We can probably make the last Mark meeting the noon one. So I just missed my first one.
That's the BOD, Board of Directors one?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, so we'll make that. As long as we have a short agenda.
Yeah. We'll make it short.
Okay. All right.
I just want,
Is that all you had this morning?
yeah, I just want to add something in kind of in deference to Mr. Klemp, is that yesterday was the anniversary, just for those who didn't know, of the Gettysburg Address. So I do like history, Commissioner.
I did not
So
know that.
I just
I do
wanted
too.
to share that,
Yeah.
is that was the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address, which I think was a really important document in our country's history. So that's it.
Anybody else have anything?
Go ahead. All right. I just, on that email that we'd received from a resident that reached out to one of our state representatives and gave him the whole history of the LAVTR, it was absolutely correct, because once they stopped paying the LAVTR, our taxes did go up, but not over the rate of inflation if we would have had our LAVTR. We had, prior to the revenue neutral, there was a property tax lid. We never exceeded that property tax lid over the rate of inflation, where we had to go out for a vote. So we have always kept it, except, the counties did have to raise their budgets or their taxes because the state wasn't sending back that money they collected here. Then we had the business machinery tax that went into effect, and the state was going to pay that for 10 years. They paid it for the first 6 months.
They promised
Then
to
we
make
had
us whole.
city-county revenue sharing funds. And it just, the list goes on through that 20 years they didn't pay that. Why county budgets or county taxes had to go up.
Exactly.
Some cities too.
Well, cities too,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're sitting there on the $4 billion. We're not.
So that gets to the issue of, it always seems like we have finger pointing between the state and our state legislators will point fingers to the local, the cities and the counties, and then the cities and the counties we're referring to, well, you guys have done all these unfunded mandates, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
It goes back and forth. But, and all that to say, do we have our breakfast set up, or?
Legislative breakfast.
Yes.
December
I believe
13th?
The invitations went out yesterday or today. It's Friday the 13th.
Okay.
That's fitting.
Friday the 13th of December.
Yes.
Okay, I have a couple things with the
Where's that being held?
what Mr. Klemp brought up, the
Same
museum
place.
funding
Council on
and
Aging.
all the outside agencies. Are we planning after the first of the year to have a work session on outside agency funding? Or is that something we need to bring up with the new commission?
Well, Commissioners, obviously, those are things that we discussed as part of the budget process, and that would be my intention to keep it that way, but certainly if you want to have a separate work session on those items with the new commission, we can do that.
I think we need to have an objective way of handling that. You know, how much are we going to spend, and then how's it going to be divvied up?
I
And I
can
know there's
solve
some
that
that's-
right now, just none.
I understand, Commissioner.
That's pretty easy to me.
The other thing I was going to bring up, and I don't know how this has been handled so far, is we had set aside a fund for the public, and I don't know that it's been promoted that much, but for the restoration of the historic courthouse here, and we have some major expenses coming up. Do we have any, can you kind of give information on how people can give if they wish to give toward that?
Well, Commissioners, since we are a governmental entity, we can accept donations from people. It is tax, does provide tax break for those who give it. We are welcome any contributions towards the repairs of the courthouse, but as of today, I'm not aware that we've received it.
And how would a person, if they wanted to donate, how would they address that check?
They would just want to put a note in there that this was specific to the repairs of the courthouse and make it out to the local clerk or drop it off.
And it is tax deductible?
Yes.
So that's information for the public because I do think that needs to be promoted more because whatever we can raise for that will help offset what the taxpayer and then allow more monies to go to things like museums and other things. One other item I wanted to bring up. I've been doing a survey in my district on issues, and it's still open, so I'm still getting responses. But I just wanted to give a couple of the responses. Here's question number one. Leavenworth County Commissioners have advocated to members of the Kansas legislature that Kansas should join 26 other states and place a cap on overall property tax valuation for the purpose of computing property taxes. Do you support the County Commission in continuing to advocate at the legislature to place limits upon property tax increases by limiting yearly increases to a set percentage such as 3% or 4%? And yes, 82%. No, 1. Basically, one response was no, and then other options is 15%. So I think that shows people are very concerned that we need to cap these property taxes. It's the number one issue I hear about. I don't know how the other commissioners.
So you said 82%?
82%.
I'd be real interested to talk to the one.
The other
13.
Well, there was the next highest response was other options. So I don't know what those other options would be, but maybe there's other ways to cap it or other ways to. I know there was a proposal in the legislature to put it sort of like ag land is handled on a.
So 18% of your survey or people you surveyed are bankers and realtors?
I'd like to know. I'd like to talk to the one that said it's not a good idea to see what their
I was
reasoning
going to
was.
say,
Because I can't imagine anybody would say no.
I would love to have mine capped at that rate because that'd be close to the rate of inflation.
It's the cost of living is what they were targeting.
And my question number 3 is: what do you believe is the most important issue? What do you believe are the most important issues facing Leavenworth County in the next year? And 70% of the response was property tax. And some of the other responses were land use and zoning, the growth of county government, enhancing growth to bring more jobs and commercial development, development and maintenance of roads in rural areas, and increased funding for infrastructure, bridges, and then open and transparent government. But by far, the majority is 70% property taxes. And then one more, I won't read them all, but one more is Leavenworth County Commission has adopted basic building codes of for residential construction in the county. What is your opinion? And 41% said I support reasonable health and safety codes, regulations, and requirements for residential new construction. That's 41%. 35% say I support codes, but I'm concerned at additional costs of such regulations. That's another 35%. And 12% say that I would like to see the county enhance code requirements in the future as needed for residential development. And then 12% say that they are opposed to all codes. So that's how my unscientific survey has turned out, but it's been on social media. But I think it's interesting. So that's all I have.
Do you have any kind of geographic location to the answers to those? I was just curious.
Mostly from the 5th District.
Okay. I didn't know if it was.
I didn't, I can't restrict it, but
okay.
Mostly from my district.
Is that all you have, Mike?
Yep.
Anybody else have anything? I just want to mention two things. So we sent out a informational letter with the tax bills. It was last year we sent it out on LAVTR. This year we did a follow-up letter to let people know what happened with LAVTR to this point. I got several calls about how much did that cost the taxpayers. The reason we sent that out in the tax bill is so it wouldn't cost anything to mail that out. So I've gotten some concern about how much did the county spend on mailing those out. The extra little piece of paper in there did not bump the weight up to the next price for the letter to be mailed. So it costs the same. So for people that are saying or being told, well, they wasted your money on sending that letter out, we didn't spend anything on postage to send that letter out. That's why we took advantage of the tax bill. So it would be free to send that out. And the other thing is I've answered a couple of people already about this. And most people are trying to figure out the blame game, because that's what it appears to most people. It's like the county blames the state blames the county. So the 6 or so people that I've talked to so far, by the time I got done with the conversation with them, almost all of them said the same thing. I did not know that. The things that I explained to them, they did not know. If you would please just do your homework, it's real easy to figure out who the blame game is for and who it's not for. So please, just do your homework, and you can see pretty easily who's blaming who.
You're absolutely right, because we've never asked for an unfunded mandate.
Exactly. They didn't know about unfunded mandates. They didn't know any of the information I gave them. They did not know. But once they found out, and I was able to show them where to get the information, to prove the information, they all said the same thing. We did not know that. Now that we know that, we know who's blaming who.
Just nothing else on this. This allows people to ask the questions before they weren't being asked. So don't mind the citizens calling up here or asking, because at least we know they're reading the letter for the most part and asking us the tough questions. I really believe Livermore County was one of the reasons that the state went against their own law and get rid of it this past year, so they wouldn't have to pay the counties and the cities in the state of Kansas, which is billions of dollars. Livermore County's $4 million, I know. I don't know how much the cities are going down, but this is money that was by law supposed to be here. And if anyone tells you that we weren't going to drop the property tax, if we got it sent back to us like it by law is supposed to, they're just telling you it's not true. Because we've had all the plans of dropping 3 or 4 mills, we receive that money. But we can't do this because we end up listening to y'all, and y'all got valid points. Mine went up, valid points. But the people that make this difference are the ones we keep sending to Topeka. And we got a new one going to Topeka, and he's made a promise that he's going to get involved in that, and I sure hope so, because we need some help here at the local level.
And the reason they were able to kill that LLBTR bill was because most people didn't even know about it. That's why we sent that informational letter out. Like I said, most people that I talked to said, I didn't know that. They didn't know anything about LABTR. Once they found out about it, they're like, whoa, this needs to be fixed.
Most people who went to Topeka were elected didn't know nothing about it.
That's true, too.
But they did once they were there.
That's true.
Because we
made sure of it.
Yep. So anyway. I just wanted to put those two things.
Yeah, very good, Jim.
So I know we've said this 100 times, but if you have a $1 bill and it represents all of your property tax, the county portion typically is between 25 and 30 cents. The school district portion is around 60 cents. The cities and the townships and the library boards and all the rest make up the rest. So when you see on your bill, it says Leavenworth County, but it is the taxes for your schools, your cities, and all the political subdivisions of the state. It is not the county levying all those, and we don't have authority over the school districts and the cities and the townships and all the various subdivisions. But we're sounding the alarm. And also, on our letter, we've supported like a two-tier approach, and actually more than that probably, but the LAVTR would have lowered from the county mill about 4 mills. A mill is around $1 million. $4 million we would have got from the state to lower your property taxes. And we passed a resolution as the commissioners that we would use only LAVTR returned money to give property tax relief. And it's required by the statute that money be used in that manner. And then the second part of that was, and this didn't get included in our letter, but we have supported the cap on property tax. So if you tie those two together, if you capped property taxes at 3 or 4%, and then you also had the LAVTR money, you would see significant reductions in your property tax. But this has to be something we all put together, and we have to have the legislators on board.
Let's make sure it's clear, Mike, that this is still being collected.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So the other thing, the informational letter was to let people know that just because they killed the LAVTR law, that the state will not pay back the cities and counties the LAVTR. They did not abolish collecting the 1.5% sales tax to use for that. So they're still collecting your 1.5% sales tax that was meant for LAVTR. They forgot to abolish that part of the law.
And when a legislator says, when you read the responses, and a legislator says, well, since 2005, the property taxes have gone up X percent, you got to go back and say, well, how much of that is schools? How much of that is cities? How much of that is each of the subdivisions? It's not all the county. In fact, the minority of it is the county. But they want to put all the blame on the county so they don't have to take accountability for the fact that...
That's what this is all about.
Are they telling us what their budget at the state level has done in the same period of time?
Nope.
And
I
they are
guarantee
not
you
under
that-
any kind of a restriction
I
on...
guarantee you, Mike, they're not revenue neutral.
That's why they made the revenue neutral law not apply to the state,
Yeah,
because they knew they weren't going to remain.
We just keep educating. That's all we can do, and
That's all
we'll
we
see
can
what
do.
happens.
That's all we can
And I
do.
know some of you
Until
folks that have
somebody
been here
proves us
before, you
wrong.
probably heard the
Yeah.
same
They can't.
spiel, but
Yeah.
it's...
Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Cobb.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
Motion carries. Formal board action. Consider a motion to direct staff to arrange fire protection for Fire District Number 1.
Commissioners, first I just want to give a little bit of a background or some information maybe. Seems like there might be some confusion out there. First and foremost, Fire District 1 was created via interlocal agreements with the 3 entities and the county. That'd be Delaware, High Prairie, and Lansing, and the county. The court has ruled that at January 1 of this year, that those interlocal agreements go away. Statutorily, then, the control over Fire District Number 1 comes back to the county. So the Board of County Commissioners will then be the Board of Directors, because that was what the interlocal agreement was for, was to give them the authority to appoint people to that board. So January 1, the Board of County Commissioners becomes the Board of Directors for Fire District Number 1. Fire District Number 1 cannot go away without a petition. To dissolve Fire District Number 1 requires 60% of the property owners to sign a petition. It can be redistricted, but that also requires a petition, neither of which the county is able to do. That has to happen at the local level through those entities. So we've been asked to redistrict. We can't without a petition. That's a statute. That's not something that we've put in place. That's something that the state put in place. And the entities who make up Fire District Number 1 should be aware of that. Especially they have their own attorneys and so on. the Board of County Commissioners has relayed to us that you understand that that is your role. As of January 1, you will become the district, and you intend to fulfill your duties as statutorily required, and you do not intend to relegate those duties to someone else. If I misunderstand any of that, you can certainly correct me. So what we were hopeful is that the three entities would make arrangements that they also have the statutory authority to do to provide their own fire protection services. As of today, the way I understand it, two of them have, one has not. They have, I guess, are waiting to see what the county does. They have always had that authority to do that. They just haven't. Some of the issues are if all three don't figure out a way to provide their own services, then you will have to provide services. Because Fire District 1 encompasses all three of those entities at this time, you will have to find fire protection services for all three entities if all three don't do it themselves. You can't let two do it and one not. So what we're really looking at is a way for us, the county, to provide those fire protection services in the event they don't have the opportunity or don't take the opportunity to do it themselves. What we're looking for today from the Board of County Commissioners is the authority to begin looking into those solutions. So either work with each of those three entities to make sure they have their own fire protection services made arrangements for before January 1, or enter into an agreement for somebody else to provide those services. And that's what we're looking for. And with that, the county attorney, the county counselor, or myself, I would answer any questions.
So you mentioned the petition process. There's no way a petition can be collected and validated by January 1. Am I correct on that?
No. The petition threshold for the alteration of the boundaries of a fire district requires that the owners of 10% of the land within the area to be affected by that redistricting or realignment of the boundaries of the fire district be submitted. I've calculated that, for example, if Delaware Township and the city of Lansing wished to submit such a petition, it would require approximately the owners of 2,300 acres combined.
But the amount of days to collect it and a public notice and all that?
Well, the actual alteration of the boundaries cannot take place before January 1.
Okay.
And there's a statutory threshold. The realignment or redistricting needs to occur between January 1 and be completed and effective prior to July 1.
Okay, I'll give you 7 months. And then how does the division of assets play into this?
Commissioners, the current interlocal agreement, which as Mark correctly stated, will dissolve on December 31st of this year, provides that the three parties, Delaware Township, High Prairie Township, and the city of Lansing, would mutually either agree to how to divide and allocate the current assets of the fire district or submit the matter to binding arbitration. I am aware that the parties have had extensive discussions and may be close to an agreement, but I'm not aware of any such agreement, nor am I aware of any triggering of the arbitration provision.
So if no decisions are made, are we having a meeting New Year's Eve at 12:01 as a fire board?
Well, Commissioners, what I would propose is, again, authorize us to resolve what's going to happen as far as fire protection goes on January 1. We would make arrangements for any agreements if needed and have them to you before the first of the year, but they would not actually take impact until the first of the year. That way, on midnight, you're not here on midnight of January 1st trying to make a decision.
I can be here. So.
But if it's not necessary, let's not.
Hey, no different than a firefighter getting a call. If we got to do it, we got to do it.
Any other discussion on this?
So one just comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason we have up to this point not intervened is because we were waiting for the parties to allocate their resources between the the three entities and get that settled. That was my understanding, that we were waiting for them to resolve their differences before we moved, and we really didn't want to have to intervene in as far as the commission. But then another part of this that has come to light is the fact that it's very difficult to dissolve a fire district. Could you go over the process of dissolving a fire district?
Mark alluded to a petition which is required. Once the Board of County Commissioners, by resolution, forms a fire district, the dissolution requires that a petition signed by the owners of 60% or more of the land within the fire district be submitted to the Board of County Commissioners, who then conducts a public hearing as to whether or not the fire district would be dissolved. However, if the Board of County Commissioners were to adopt a resolution dissolving the fire district, if the owners of 17% or more of the land within the fire district files a protest petition to that resolution, the resolution would not take effect. So it requires a threshold of the owners of 60% or more of the property within the fire district be submitted for consideration. And in the event that the consideration was to dissolve the fire district, a protest petition, I'll term it as that, signed by 17% or the owners of 17% or more of the district submitted, the resolution does not take effect.
So without a petition from landowners, this board has no authority.
Well, Commissioner, going back to your prior statements, this board has no authority over Fire District Number 1 on this date. The interlocal agreement, through the interlocal agreement, you transferred all of that authority to the three constituent parties. Consequently, you have not had, and you do not have, the authority to allocate or divide the assets of Fire District Number 1, nor direct its operation. You divested yourself of that at the request of Lansing, Delaware, and High Prairie Townships. You regained that authority on January 1.
So when we regain that authority, same question, lacking a petition, we still do not have the authority to dissolve the fire district.
That is a correct statement.
And we are responsible at that point for fire protection.
And we'll have something arranged by then. Late Mayor Bernard, he turned on his grave that we all couldn't come together and get this resolved. But I want everyone to understand that if this commission passes the motion, that we'll be setting the guidelines on what's getting ready to happen. So there's still time to try to fix this, but if you can't come to agreement, and I'm not blaming anybody, good people in all three of the areas, but the county commissioners will oversee it.
So the current fire board is in effect till December 31st. And how does the not collecting any taxes for Fire District 1, how's that going to play into this?
Well, it does present a problem. I believe both Delaware and High Prairie Townships have enacted a tax levy for fiscal year 2025 for the purpose of fire protection. I believe the city of Lansing has likewise acted. However, those aren't fire district funds. The fire district will collect zero tax revenue in fiscal year 2025. Obviously, that poses a problem which could be solved one of two ways. The city and the townships could transfer those funds to Fire District Number 1 for the purpose of having fire protection services provided, or the Board of Directors of Fire District Number 1, which after January 1st would be you, can issue a no-fund warrant to fund the operations of Fire District Number 1 for fiscal year 2025. That bill coming due in fiscal year 2026 through an assessment throughout the fire district.
So you're going to be double taxing somebody.
There is a potential risk of that occurring, Commissioner, and that is why your staff has been providing information to the constituent parties with respect to the petition process for the alteration of the boundaries of Fire District Number 1 to prevent that from occurring.
So staff is going to act as a mediator to try to get this worked out? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Okay.
No, it's the duty of the parties to divide and allocate those resources. If it is not done, if on January 1st that has not occurred, and those assets and resources have not been transferred through legal means from the fire district to one of those three parties, those assets resources become, now they're still the property of Fire District Number 1, and they would be under your control.
Okay, so I guess what we're going to glean from today is January 1, this Board of County Commission is the Fire District's board.
Yes, and
Okay.
I'd like to reinforce what Mark said earlier, and Commissioner Stevens' point is, you have no authority on today or tomorrow or before January 1 to affect any of the measures that are needed. The parties, that is the two townships in the city, have that ability, and I think you've been encouraging them to confer among themselves to make those appropriate arrangements, and if they fail to do so, you would have the authority of the fire district.
Well, I thought that before it went to court, and the judge confirmed that that's the fact, the way it is. But, so, is there a deadline, drop-dead deadline when the assets have to be divided?
If it is not affected by midnight, December 31st, those assets remain in the Fire District Number 1, and you are the Board of Directors of Fire District Number 1.
Okay.
So there's been some suggestions from some parties that we just allow the township board to take the trusteeship of the fire district. If we were to do that, then one township board would then oversee not only the High Prairie portion of Fire District 1, but also the other portions of Fire District 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
So they would be in charge even of the fact of levying taxes in other portions of the district?
That is a potential situation.
I think it should be clarified also, though, that the landowners, and there are some of the properties that are involved when it comes to the petition are large parcels, and so it's the amount. So how am I put it's?
Commissioner Cos, if I could, I believe in 2022 the City of Lansing presented to the Board of County Commissioners a petition to alter the boundaries of Fire District Number 1. They later withdrew that petition. But the petition that was presented was well in excess of the threshold required for such a petition. I've provided a copy of that to the city staff for them to utilize as a potential model for a subsequent petition.
Because it wasn't a large number of parcels that comprised that land, the amount of land that was involved.
I didn't know they withdrew it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember getting a petition, but I don't remember it being withdrawn.
And the key is, again, folks, everybody listening and watching, we'll make the decision, and your voice, it should be said now and before the 1st of January, because we'll decide how that protection is running, and I'm sure not everybody's going to be happy. I encourage you again, I know you've gone back and forth in these talks, but I'd certainly, if there's any one or two or three people holding this up from y'all working together, I'd sure be trying to fix this before it goes to January 1st. We don't want control of it, but you're going to put us in that position.
So what we're going to do right now is look towards contracting out fire protection so that on January 1st there will be fire protection insured, and that's the county commission cannot allow there to not be fire protection.
Well, Commissioners, first and foremost, it would be our preference that the three entities, like Delaware and Lansing have already done, make their own arrangements for fire protection services. They levy the taxes. They have the statutory authority to do exactly that, so that would be our preference. We will reach out to them and see if that is what they would like to do. Failure to do that, then we will also make arrangements so that fire protection services can continue January 1. And that would be to contract that service out if needed.
One thing I need to bring up, I started thinking about I got that wrong. They never did withdraw that petition. Lansing.
Like I said, I don't know.
No, I don't think they ever did.
It's not my area, but
No, they're saying no. I don't think they did. We went back so forth so many times.
So I did have just one more question. So if the division of assets is not completed before January 1, does that mean the Board of County Commissioners will be in charge of dividing the assets?
You would be in charge of the assets.
The assets themselves.
Were they to be divided, it would be at your discretion.
And I'm sure there's a formula that why you would divide it based on population, or
There's a formula set up, yeah.
there is a formula.
Yeah,
set up?
they've been working through it.
Okay.
Well, there's a formula in the interlocal agreement. As far as a statutory formula, I would have to look, but I believe it would be based on assessed valuations.
Okay.
So the motion this morning they're asking for is for the backup plan.
Consensus. A
So
consensus.
we prefer them to work it out on their own before January 1, but we can't wait till January 1 to come up with a plan if they don't. So the motion this morning is a backup plan in case they don't work it out. We're going to go ahead and have staff
But
work
can we
on
do
the
that
plan.
when we don't
to
have
clarify,
any authority?
Well, they're just going to
Regardless-
work on a plan, and if nothing, if they go ahead and divide up the assets themselves and get everything finished on their own, we just don't implement the plan the staff's working on. But
We're
we gotta
still the
have
fire
we will
board.
still be the
We'll still
fire
be the
district.
So
fire
we still,
board.
we still,
On
still
January
oversee
1.
it, and it's not what we want to do.
But we're hoping they divide.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we can't wait till
and
the last
arrange for
minute.
fire protection.
Yeah.
Or however it's going to happen.
You know,
Whether
after-
it's to
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
After hearing this, I make a motion to direct staff to arrange fire protection for Fire District Number 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do have something to say. This has put the county commissioners in a bad position. When I first got on the commission in 19, we had our first meeting, I think it was in 20, with a lot of people out here, and one of the questions that I posed when they came was, how much has each entity spent on attorneys suing the other entity? So you had township suing city, city suing township, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted taxpayers' money because folks, basically, we can't come to an agreement, sit down at the table and come to an agreement. And so now what's going to happen is there won't have to be an agreement now if we can't reach something very quickly.
By January 1.
The county commission is going to take control of this. And that's unfortunate. That's not the way it should work. And but we certainly and we're sad about it. We don't. And believe me, we got a lot of other things on our plate that we're dealing with besides having to take control of a fire district. But we're going to arrange to make sure, and I think this is the point for the media, is we want everybody to know there will be fire protection on January 1st, and the county commission will not let it lapse.
Yep. Can you say your name and address, then?
Roberta Reddy, High Prairie Township Clerk. I live at 24309 Tonganoxie Drive. Right here is almost the final draft of the agreement, of the allocations. You have it on your agenda to sign it tomorrow night.
Is that the 5-year contract?
No, this is the allocation of assets.
Division of
Okay. Just a
Division of
motion.
assets. And you talked about double taxation. City of Lansing and Delaware position of High Prairie Township future fire protection in light of the parties' agreement, and Van Paris does have this also, I'm sure, agreement on the above described matters. The parties hereby memorize that there is no obligation by the City of Lansing or Delaware Township to High Prairie Township proposal of the Board of County Commissioners that is an interim solution to 2025. Fire District 1 provides services only to High Prairie Township under the supervision of High Prairie Township Board, with funding provided only by High Prairie Township and no taxation of Lansing or Delaware Township to pay for fire protection in High Prairie Township. Also, having said that, is there another solution to this problem? Can you guys set the boundaries as High Prairie and have it go into effect on 5/1 or 1/1 of 25?
We understand there has to be a petition
You're
from
talking about
the other
High Prairie.
subdivisions.
But doesn't that change after 1/1?
No.
You can't.
No, it does not.
You can't do that.
Well, the allocations will be taken care of ASAP.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Motion and a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to give you a briefing of where we're at.
What's your name?
Library
Name and-
Township.
name and
My name
address.
is Kathleen Williams.
Thank you.
Live at 17203 McIntyre Road. I'm the treasurer of the township. We have met with dispatch to get a new tone. We have picked a fire chief. I am working with insurance people to get our properties insured, to get workman's comp, to get liability, all that stuff is all in the process. I'm also working with different companies to do paychecks so that when we pay our people, taxes are paid appropriately, money goes to the KPF fund, all of that stuff. That's all in the works. If you would allow us to have a work session with you so that we can bring you up to date as to where High Prairie is in wanting to run their own fire department come January 1st. Is that
My
possible?
understanding that we could not do that, Mr.
Commissioners,
Van Perry?
that's exactly what we've been asking them to do. However, if you recall, they did take us to court to actually require us to take over the fire
Make a
district.
decision.
So our preference would be to not be in charge of Fire District Number 1, but we have to be as of January 1. However the services are provided, that's what we're trying to work out, and that's what this motion that you've made will allow us to do.
All we're asking is to allow us to operate utilizing the name Leavenworth County Fire District 1 for our firefighters and
So you did hear what they said was
yes, I did hear.
that you would be in
and
charge
if you
of the.
remember, last May.
Well,
this
wait a
past
minute.
May.
Wait,
Okay.
let me finish. You did hear that if we did, and I don't even know if we have authority to take that action, but if you did become the trustees of the entire fire district, you would be trustees over areas and able to levy taxes over areas that you're not elected to do. The township board would also be over Delaware and Lansing.
Until they get a
Not until
petition?
the
Yep.
petition.
They are not out of the fire district as of December 31st. They still remain in the fire district. The only way to dissolve the fire district is via petition. The only way to redraw the boundaries is via petition. Neither of those has occurred. We do not have the ability to do that without those petitions.
So we could not put the Township Board of High Prairie Township over the entire district
Lansing,
because
Delaware.
there would not be representation.
This past May, we met with you folks, and we asked at that time to have the boundaries redrawn. So it was only High Prairie Township in the fire district. Why at that time weren't we directed or advised to put in a petition?
Maybe you have
We
your own
thought-
attorney.
At that time, we did not. We did not.
This is what happens when you have an adversarial relationship and government entities are suing government entities.
That wasn't happening at that time. If you go back and listen to that tape,
Well, the other thing
So
is
that
too,
doesn't- that doesn't
when this county, y'all know I was the mayor in Lansing when this all started, and it was one of the things I didn't like to get involved in. But the bottom line is, the county gave all this authority. We're not responsible for you and your attorneys to be talking about this. We wanted to stay out of it totally and get away from it so y'all can make the decision.
but Mr. Smith, in
Let me
May,
clarify one thing. I don't think that the Board of County Commissioners even realized the petition requirement until just fairly recently that we were even aware that a petition was required to change the boundaries. But we could not act to change any boundaries because there was another board
Yeah.
in operation, which is still in operation, governing the fire district.
But either way,
But-
even if you get an answer
but we
to what you
can't
just said.
pre-plan
Yeah, but.
so that
but
we
even-
and have a fire department on January 1. That can't happen. There's no pre-planning.
Well, did your attorney advise you what the requirements were for redrawing the lines?
No, because that we did not realize that all we had to do was come to you and request that. We did not know that we had to put a petition in. We asked about this back in May when we had this work session.
But this is the only thing that the commission, and I'm not speaking for the commission, but the only thing I recall is that we said you had not completed the division of assets and that we were going to wait until that process was completed, and that's where
Then we got served. And we couldn't
Well,
do
yeah,
anything
when after
until
that-
the courts decided.
But the last thing I remember from our meeting was you were still in the process of division of assets.
But our point is, we didn't even need to get involved back in May. You didn't need to come to us for anything back in May. So whether or not we told
We
you
wanted
something
to
or
start working with you, so we knew what we needed to do.
we told you right then, you don't need to talk to us. This is all in your court for you three entities to figure out. It wasn't up to us. So that's what we tried to tell you from the beginning. Do you have something else to add?
I have a clarifying question.
Sure.
So before you say something, I do want to thank you for the email, which put a comparison between
Yeah.
a fire district and a township.
Yeah, that'll actually help us figure out what we're
It
doing.
was very good.
Thank you. I like data.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle Mester, 18456 Tonganoxie Drive. So I just want to ask a clarifying question. I think what I'm hearing there are two options here. One is it goes the Board of County Commissioners route, and the dominant preference would be contracting services out. Option A, right? From a legal perspective and a practical perspective. Option B, if we want to handle our own fire station, would be that we would need to do a petition and create a fire or a township fire department. Is that an option where then we would own it?
One of many options that are available to the townships. Kansas statutes spell those out, both in the statutes that deal with townships. And I urge you to consult with your legal counsel.
I'm just a person. I don't have a lawyer, but
Well,
It's what's being done.
I would say that actually, option A, our preferred option, is that each of the entities figure out how to provide their own fire protection service, and then we can work as the county when the county commissioners become the fire district number one, that we would have an interlocal agreement with each separate entity that allowed for them to provide those services for themselves.
But do we
That would
need
be
to have?
option A.
Do we need the umbrella of a legal township fire department for that to be a legitimate option?
Every township already and the city already has the authority to provide fire protection services. It would be an interlocal agreement that we would have to give up our rights to control that area via interlocal agreement.
So even if we did a petition, we would still require an interlocal agreement with all three to say.
Because that petition cannot go into effect prior to January 1, yes, there would still need to be an interlocal agreement in place.
Even a petition for an individual fire department?
You do not need a petition to do the services if you get an interlocal agreement with the county. Then you can work on getting the petition to redistrict the fire district after the first of the year. That's statutory.
So just to kind of clarify that, if they chose that High Prairie Township was going to do their own fire protection, they could proceed with that, and when the January 1st deadline passes, Fire District 1 could potentially just become a shell.
Commissioner, this is what the motion that you've made and that we would
Right.
like for you to approve will allow us to resolve. We can't resolve it today. It's going to take some time. And that's the motion that we've asked for. As far as who does what at the first of the year, that's what needs to be resolved between now and the first of the year, and that's what we've asked you to give us.
Yep.
Right. So.
Okay. One last thing. Go ahead.
In May, when we came to you and we visited with you in a work session, you instructed me to go downstairs and get a map and to present it to you guys, and I did. And we were under the impression and told, as long as we presented a letter with the map to you guys prior to July 7th or first couple days of July, it was allowable. So we asked for it in May.
But you had an attorney on staff, and
Not
you
at
actually,
that-
well,
not at that
but,
time.
but
Mike,
not at that time, but since that time, you had an attorney, and we have found there's a difference in how you do this, and I would have thought that you would have consulted your attorney as well.
Well, we didn't get our attorney until after July.
Mike, just let her finish.
Kathleen, what day did we write that first check to him?
Just-
Do you
yeah.
know, off the top of your head? In September.
Yeah.
We went that long. Because we were trying to avoid any more legal cost.
Yeah, but I remember very well in May, our conversation, and we can pull it back up and watch the recording. We told you at that point, we do not have the authority, the county commission does not have the authority to do anything you're asking for. When we told you to go get a map, that was to help you figure it out.
Right.
So
and-
you
and
could
go
look
talk
at the
to
map
fire
and
board.
do do the petition or whatever needed to be done to redraw the boundaries. That's what we were trying to help you figure out where to get the information you needed. It wasn't for you to bring it back to us and we solve it for you. We've told you guys that from the very beginning. We cannot solve this for you until January 1. We have no authority to do anything
Well, we
for
were
you.
instructed by you and the board to get the map, get a letter, go to the fire board, ask the fire board to present it back to you, and he came
Not
back-
that part.
Huh?
Not that part. To let us know what you decided, but not for us to approve anything.
Right. And he came back and did exactly the opposite of what we requested.
Okay, but
But that's on
yeah,
you.
right.
But you did not
Mike,
talk to your counsel about any of this.
okay,
We were
Mr.
trying to avoid court costs.
Mr. Chair, we have a motion, a second. I call for the roll
Yes, sir.
call.
I'll entertain a motion for the vote.
It already
Or
was.
we'll
Roll call.
take the roll call for the vote, sir.
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
So please, start meeting with people to figure out something before, so that we can figure out how we're going to act before January 1.
Yeah, this will go. This
And if
way
we
we'll
need
go over
to,
the options.
if we need to meet on New Year's, we can do that.
yeah, figure out
We could put it.
I'll
Yeah.
bring the champagne.
what you guys want to do on January 1.
Bring champagne.
Next,
already said
presentations
that.
and discussion items.
I can do that too.
Start with Vicki. Vicki, you have anything for this week? For presentation
Did
discussion?
the Port Authority meeting yesterday, nothing that was earth-shattering
Oh, sorry,
to
couldn't make that.
report. They're hoping to meet with the new Board of County Commissioners as they're seated in the new year to kind of discuss some of the things that they're looking at and planning. And they're moving forward with meeting to try to figure out funding sources and streams. So that's still on their thing. And then following this meeting, I will be, I'm going to Zoom this time on the Transit Authority meeting for this week too, because then I have
Full-time job, isn't it?
something else I have to do in between. I have to
It is.
go in between, so I'll be logging off and on for the Transit Authority meeting this afternoon. That's, I think, pretty much what I have going on.
I don't have anything.
Oh, and I have a NECAP meeting, and we need to get somebody named.
We will. We got that list coming up.
Yep.
I don't have anything, Commissioner.
Nothing? Okay, I just wanted to mention I have a meeting December 17th with the Fort Committee on EMS contract, the MOU between the county providing ambulance service to Fort Leavenworth. Those conversations are going pretty well. They're in complete agreement that we can't continue the same MOU that we've had for no charge whatsoever.
You ever need somebody to tag along with you, so let me know.
Okay, that's all I have.
I think I got Northeast Kansas officials meeting Friday.
Yeah.
Linden, Osage City, Linden, somewhere down
Yeah.
there. Somewhere south.
You're in the area.
That's Friday. That's all I got.
Commissioner Stephen, you have anything this
I
week?
do not.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
Please, before he says
Motion
something.
to adjourn?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.